Hey guys, Ben Buchanan here with IDI Distributors out of Nashville, Tennessee. I wanted to give you a quick tech tip of the day on ignition and thermal barrier coatings, where they're used, why they're used, and all that good stuff. So, first off, let's talk about what a thermal barrier is and where it is needed. A thermal barrier is a intumescent coating that's applied to could be a number of different things, but in this case, we're talking about spray foam. And if anybody out there tells you that they have a foam that passes the thermal barrier test, I have not seen it yet. I think there's some out there that claim they've passed some tests, but there is no foam on the market that passes the 15-minute thermal barrier test. So in saying that, let's talk about where and when a thermal barrier is needed. So, if we're talking about an attic application, which is typically where it comes up and where codes is coming down in a lot of counties and cities, and they should be. A lot of guys get irritated that they have to apply it, but just think, if everyone is doing it, then it's profitable for everyone. And if we're all putting it on, then we're all making extra money and we're all doing it the right way. So let's all do it the right way. So the best thing about the products we sell is mostly DC 315. The coverages have gone up, so your price per foot has come down, but it's about applying that correctly as well. So when we're applying DC 315, making sure we're applying it the correct mil thickness and not overspraying it, so that we're making the optimum amount of money out of our product, just like spray foam, getting the best yield out of it. Typically, we want to spray in an up and down pattern and then a right and left pattern, not waiting for it to dry, but just so we're hitting that foam at every single angle possible. So if we're doing that in an attic with like open cell, trying to hit all those little lumps and bumps, it can be difficult sometimes. So spraying it up and down and then right and left is the best way to do it. Now, when do we need that thermal barrier coating? If we walk up into an attic, the code states with a reasonable expectation of storage. So if you walk up there as a spray foam contractor and you think that a homeowner could store something up there, then you need to quote a thermal barrier coating. But I always tell guys, if you're going to do that, let your contractor know you're quoting it. Let him know that other trades may not be quoting it and that you're bringing this house up to code. And if push comes to shove and this guy's beating you by $5,000 on a job, that's probably why. And if the code inspector comes back and says you have to have it, well, then he's going to have to pay it anyway. So make sure you're bringing that up, putting it into your bid, and letting that that general contractor know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. So if you've got 20 pieces of plywood up there, probably going to need a thermal barrier coating. So with any reasonable expectation of storage, then we have to have a thermal barrier because people are going to be in that area. The other instance where you would need a thermal barrier is anytime it's exposed to a living space. So that's going to be restaurants, warehouses, things like that. Anytime it's going to be exposed to where people are living, we got to have a thermal barrier coating. So that covers most of our thermal barrier stuff. But let's get where it gets a little bit iffy, and that's in a crawl space. I would say close to 75 to 80% of the closed cell foams on the market right now pass the Appendix X test. Now, what does that mean? That means that foam passes the ignition barrier test. So in crawl spaces, most of the time we don't need a coating. We can spray that closed cell foam and it's fine. But here's an instance where you would need a thermal barrier coating. A lot of guys want to do a conditioned crawl and they want to open up a return and a supply in that crawl space area. If they do that and there is no damper to close that off in the case of a fire, then it needs to have a thermal barrier coating because we've now opened that crawl space up to the living space. It now communicates with the living space, therefore it's part of the living space and it needs to have a thermal barrier coating. Now, in that same crawl space, what should we do? Now, there's tons of different ways to do it, but negative pressure on a crawl space is what we want. And that requires no coating at all. We can just get away with negative pressure in a crawl space. Whether that's a dehumidifier with some kind of exhaust coming out, or any other way of exhausting air, negative pressure on that crawl space is what we want. So that's one of those instances where it kind of gets a little hairy and guys don't know. A lot of times the code inspector doesn't even know. But at IDI, we're committed to training you guys and trying to train code inspectors so that everybody knows. We try to be your source for information like this. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, please leave them in the comments below, or give me a call if you have any questions like that. My number is 615-707-2058. At IDI, we want to be a source for you. Thanks a lot, guys, and have an amazing day.